management research. Hello and welcome to the Management Research Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eugene Povedistov. Hello and welcome to the next episode in my mini-series dedicated to the topic of psychological games as proposed by Berne. In my last episode, I asked you about suggestions and what you would like me to talk about. And I received one of the interesting suggestions from my doctoral student, Mr. Despotovich. And in order to let you understand what the suggestion is, I have to shortly tell what we are working on. And Mr. Despotovich and I, we work on the topic of identity. When you look at identity, according to different theories, you may say that there are three identities that you have within your head. This is the personal identity, something what makes you unique, something how you distinguish yourself as compared to other people, that you are, for example, a dreamer, somebody with unique capabilities, and so on. The second one is the social identity. It means the identity of yourself belonging to a social group, for example, being part of the family, or being part of the enterprise, or being part of the community of researchers, and so on. And the third identity, or the third type of identity, is the role identity, because you have to play different roles in your life, and for example, in a family you can play a role of a father, or you can play a role of a mother, and in the firm you may play a role of a manager, or any other role. And these three identities, they tell you how you should behave. For example, imagine that your personal identity is being a dreamer, being romantic, and if you have to make a decision where you go to vacation, then maybe you might, driven by this type of identity, you might select the option that is more romantic than the other options. If you look at the social group, the social identity, and let's say you feel at the moment yourself as a part of your firm, then you might go to the same location where other people are going. You may join them or you may not join them, and for example, in the event of our university, most people go to the Garda Lake in Italy. And the third type of identity is the role identity. This would be the one that would also dictate your decision making. For instance, if you're in the role of a father, then you might select a destination that is a better fit for your family, and if you have kids, where the kids would be secure and have something to do. And as you see, these three identities would dictate different decisions that you might make. And we assume with Mr. Despotovich that we can approach this decision-making process through a kind of triangular landscape, where you have the three poles and where you move between these poles. Because for several decisions you might even combine the things and try to think like looking for a romantic destination, but at the same time the destination that will be also fitting the needs of your kids, or the one that will also correspond the destination that are good for your role. For example, if you're a scientist, then I think going to the Ostsee in Germany, going to the island Witte is the one island where Einstein used to live, so probably would be an interesting location for you. And here you see probably what the suggestion of Mr. Despotovich was. Because in the event of psychological games, Berne suggested that we also have three ego states. The ego state of a parent, the ego state of a child, and the ego state of an adult. And theoretically we can approach them as a kind of identity. That at that moment, when you make decision or when you communicate with other people, you feel like a parent, or you feel like an adult, or you feel like a child. And it is interesting suggestion, although I think it won't be the perfect fit, because of several reasons. First, while in the event of identity, we may combine different identities and we experience them almost in parallel, and you are at the same time father, at the same time a professor, and at the same time a dreamer, of course the one of them will become a little more salient than the other one. In the psychological games transactional analysis, as suggested by Berne, it might be more problematic. We play all three roles, but we usually switch between this role and remain in this role. So I think it is a bit different. So let's say the salience would be more pronounced, at least according to the theory by Berne. The second thing where I think this theory might not be helpful is that if you look at the parent ego state, you can say that it is at the same time a role, but it is also a kind of, can be a social group, that you're one of the parents. And if you look at the communication, then the communication between parents is more like a communication within the social group of parents. You position yourself as a parent and you talk to others as to parents. And it means that the role and the social identity will be confused, at least in this theory by Berne. But nevertheless, I would like to say that it is a very interesting idea, and the interesting idea is that the salience is there. So there is 3 different roles who switch between them. They may be more pronounced, so there may be no shades of gray between the 2 positions, between the adult, the child and the parent, and you will just more easily shift between them. In the event of role identity, social identity and personal identity, there might be overlappings, and you can be at the same time in a role of a father and also belonging to a social group of the father. So anyway, but the idea is very, very interesting. And the second thing, that using this triangular scheme, the one where you have a kind of landscape that is formed by 3 peaks of a triangle, and your decision is predestined by your position in this triangle, so where you are exactly, may be very interesting. And I think there are plenty of opportunities for future research if you want to deal with the psychological games as proposed by Berne and combining them with the triangular scheme. And by the way, we have this triangular scheme from the work by Dewey 1922, who talked about action predispositions and who said that there are 3 predispositions for action. The action can be habitual, the action can be intentional, and the action can be emotional. And he said like these 3 predispositions, they build a peak of a triangle, and each of your decisions is somehow driven by either intention or intention mixed with emotions, or intention mixed with the habits, habit mixed with emotion. So you're like kind of moving on this triangle, and depending on where you are in this triangle, your decision will look different. The same idea is also applied in the field of organizational management, and the papers by Cohen 2007 and Winter 2013 symposium paper by Winter, they discuss this idea and how we can apply the notion developed by Dewey in organizational decision making. I hope it was interesting, and I hope you have now a bit different view on the transactional analysis with these 3 ego states that might be seen as 3 peaks on a landscape of your communication. It's not decision making, it's the communication way, and it may be a different understanding on how people communicate with each other and why we get into games or why we get to a high quality communication. If you're interested, let us know. Maybe it can be our new joint research project, and we'll see whether we succeed with this theory. Wish you all the best, have a nice day, and bye-bye.